of. Greetings to you. How you doing? Victoria Taft, your Adult in the Room on the Adult in the Room podcast live stream that we do every Tuesday and Thursday, except last week and this week we're not doing Thursday because of personal things I have to attend to. But I've got a great show for you. This is worth like 3 live streams of anybody else's show. Well, you know, within reason. I'm going to talk to this guy, J. Michael Waller. He's written the book called Big Intel. We'll have him on in a couple of minutes, but I wanted to let you know, because we're going to talk mostly about, as your news Sherpa, we're going to talk about what's in the news immediately. And that, of course, has been the big announcement that we reportedly from the White House, we have shot down an Iranian drone that was headed to the USS Abraham Lincoln to do something. Anyway, it's no longer with us, the drone. It's gone. And sadly, for the drone and the people who thought that they'd try to fly it against the United States of America. You know, sometimes it's a hit, sometimes it's a miss, whatever. Then, of course, we have the Jeffrey Epstein files. And I, like many millions of other people, have started going through the Epstein files. And I am, interested. I did a couple of things. I wanted you to see this. And I will get to what I looked at via Grok and via Perplexity in just a moment. But I did want to tell you that already there's been some fallout, believe it or not. Yes, believe it or not, there's been fallout, and let's check it out. The first person to leave their job as a result of the Epstein files is Peter Mandelson from UK. He's in the House of Lords, and but he's not going to be in there for very much longer because the House of Lords. Was he involved in kinky stuff? No. He was spying. Apparently, spying on his own country to give vital documents to Jeffrey Epstein. Gee, why would Jeffrey Epstein need vital documents? Very good question. Maybe I'll ask about that of our guest coming up in a couple of minutes. Then, of course, we had lots of people going through the lists. I mean, who's doing what, and whose names are in the Epstein file. Great question. I think it's a totally awesome question. So let's take a look at some of the names in the Epstein file. I did for you a cull through, and a couple of things going through this. Let's make sure I get you to be able to see this document. And it is my Grok feed based on the Epstein files, which have been released so far. And what we see here is a look at, I asked Grok to go through who's on the list. Did they do anything illegal? Did they visit Little St. James? Did they visit the New York house? And of course, in a later one, I checked out how many times people's names appear. Pro tip for you, don't even bother looking for it because Donald Trump is the hands-down winner. And we'll tell you about that as well. Ghislaine Maxwell, of course, is number one because she was his co-conspirator. She was the person to whom he reached out to find him little girls. And so she was the procurer ex-girlfriend kept going in and being his friend with some kind of benefits. Then there's Prince Andrew, Jean-Luc Brunel, who was before he committed suicide because of the Epstein files and all of the muck that came with that. He was the guy who also procured, allegedly, wait, he's dead, so I can't actually defame him. Many people who were trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein and or caught up in that whole nefarious, what are we calling it? Confab, this enterprise. They said that Jean-Luc Brunel, this dude right here, bad. This individual trafficked them to Jeffrey Epstein, and when they went to be a model, ended up in the service of other people and not their own choice. Alan Dershowitz was accused. That's been settled. Apparently, Virginia Giuffre said that she thought Alan Dershowitz had done something with her, and he went immediately to guns and sued the hell out of her and wrote a book about it and said that no way. So she recanted. She was paid off in some form or fashion. And then she says she thinks she was mistaken, which is possible if you are trafficked that many times. Bill Richardson, the former New Mexico governor, he was a former Clinton official. He was, what was he? Was he Secretary of State? Forgive me. He was a big high roller. Okay. Then we have the individuals who visited Little St. James, but they were not accused of crimes. Stephen Hawking, Jess Staley, you know some of this. Les Wexner, who was a person who was a Jeffrey Epstein colleague. This is the person who gave Jeffrey Epstein the attorney's rights, the legal right to do with his fortune for Victoria's Secret, and who knows what else he was doing, to do with it as he saw fit. Howard Lutnick, who's the current Commerce Secretary, he appears there because it's so wonderful, to have these names that now who are pretty good people. Anyway, he and his family, his wife, kids, and another family, wife and kids, go to Little St. James, which is called, Island. And they had all the kids and stuff over for dinner, and the left is trying to make hay over the fact that there were children involved, Howard Lutnick's children, who ranged in age from 7 to teenage. Elon Musk is named in it. Bill Clinton is named in it multiple times. And then we have individuals who visited the New York house, but not the island. Donald Trump never went to, Island. Michael Jackson, photographed at the New York house. Woody Allen. Ehud Barak, with whom Jeffrey Epstein is believed to have done some finance deals. And I'm going to ask J. Michael Waller about that. David Copperfield, odd. And so there are those things. So now we're going to go over to another Grok check. I'm going to share this tab for you. And let's see, make sure I've got the right one here. Yeah. So individuals who visited I want to get not now. Of course. Multiple trips by Donald Trump. Oh, I know. It's in the DOJ file. Okay. So this is Todd Blanche, who's talking about how many people they were going to allow, how many documents they were going to allow out. We can listen to that a little bit later, but I wanted to get here because this is the document that so many people want to look at, and this is the one, Donald Trump. You can go to the DOJ, and you can look up anyone you want to see. Jay-Z's in there, and who knows what. And everybody's going, oh, Jay-Z. Of course, there's been a number of things with him and Diddy that have been reported, but I've never heard him connected with Epstein, but hey, you never know. And I'm sure for many people, it's just absolutely, hey, man, wrong time, wrong place kind of a thing. Or, that guy was the boss of the guy at the place at the thing, and I happen to be there and or whatever. So, but I just wanted to give you a few examples of what they say about Donald Trump. And let's go here because this one is pretty interesting. This is, let's just go back because I wanted to read this to let you know. Jeffrey Epstein had an obsession with Donald Trump because Donald Trump, I don't know exactly why he had the obsession. He's apparently dead, so we don't know. However, if you'd been kicked out and you turned your back on a guy that you used to pal around with in the 1990s, and all of a sudden he's hitting on your servers and or massage people over at Mar-a-Lago, and he finds out that he's been, with women, young women, some under 18 women, then you might not like him either. Okay, you might not like him either, and so. Yeah, we have this one. Here's a USA Today. I want you to see this because this is the kind of stuff Jeffrey Epstein kept on Donald Trump. We don't have to actually look at it per se, but we want to see the kind of things. It's a USA Today article about Donald Trump, and it's entitled, or has as its sort of main thesis, Donald Trump gets back on the birther wagon, but insists Hillary drove it first. And in fact, that's true, by the way. Then we have Deepak Chopra, I find, sent Jeffrey Epstein multiple emails, which many people did, but this happened to be about Donald Trump. And Deepak Chopra sent an email and an article that was the subject line was the Looking Glass War, and the subject is Looking Glass War, San Francisco Gate. That's a San Francisco Chronicle online website. And it's an opinion by Deepak Chopra. That's funny. That's really good. Then we got a couple others. Richard Kahn, an insider at the Epstein-Orama Epstein world. This guy sent Jeffrey Epstein a note saying Peter Thiel has been hedging his bet on Donald Trump. It is an article out of BuzzFeed from 2017. And then Deepak Chopra. So in other words, there are lots of innocuous things that were said about Donald Trump, and nobody gives a flying flipping frittata about them. There's one document out there, however, that looks pretty nefarious, and we may get to that as well. But it's demonstrative of and dispositive of zero, but until you find out what it means. There's a lot of stuff like free radical info, right? Free radical info that you don't actually know means anything. You don't actually, that people are throwing out stuff that is bizarre. There's a lot of misinformation. There's one out there, and it's if you see this one, before I get to Michael, check this out. I'm going to go share it a little bit. Blah, blah, blah. Let's get her. Share this tab instead. Watch this. Here she is. I hope you can see her. Hold on. I want to make sure you can. Oh, yeah. It's because I'm just going to keep it all the way in this thing. I don't want to get her close up. Now, this is a person who supposedly is crying out about eating humans and being, man's inhumanity to man, the elite parties, etc. So if you see this picture, somebody has the ability to identify this woman. I'm afraid I cannot identify her, and I'll tell you why. Because her name does not appear in the Epstein files. So you have sort of free radical weirdo stuff coming out, lots of crapola that is not necessarily true. So you really have to be on your game, or you just got to do it. So some of that crap is, it's crap. Okay, so let's go back. I want to make sure I can undo this. Now, this is important. These are very important. There's going to be a lot of, I'm sure I know why Donald Trump didn't necessarily want to share this. What would you? If you've got these weird things that actually, these are only FBI files, they're only DOJ files, which they are. They're on any other universe of files that are a part of this now from this latest tranche of 3 million files, which include copious emails from Deepak Chopra. Anyway, so you don't have everything, but it doesn't mean that they're necessarily true. It's that they are responsive to the law passed by Congress that required these files to be released. Okay, fair enough. So just be a good, try to be a good steward of these files. Try to be a good, be smart about it. Don't be a dummy. There's so many dummies out there. Let me tell you. And yeah, it's just true. It is true. I want to introduce you to J. Michael Waller. He's a cool guy. And he probably has something to say about the Epstein files as well. And we'll get more into that a little bit later in terms of all the Epstein files and what else I know. But what you're seeing in Minneapolis right now, you've seen it over the weekend. And I saw one of his tweets, i.e. something on X, a message in reply to Mike Benz and the next reply to Cam Higbee and others on the planned insurgency that this is in Minneapolis and other places, Portland, the usual suspects. So what you're seeing is a planned insurrection. It's a planned insurgency, a revolutionary moment that is being staged, crafted by leftist leaders. It's being paid for by leftist billionaires, NGOs, nonprofits. They funnel their money in there. They get a lot of dummies in there who don't get paid, but they're very happy to be there. They're delighted to be part of the cannon fodder who will get shot on behalf of the elite. Their leaders are the same people paid for by the same groups, the billionaires, the Singhams, the Soroses, the Rockefeller Foundation, distributed through the Democratic fundraising machine, such as Arabella, other organizations. It's believed that Singham, Ray Singham, he's probably most responsible for Minneapolis, what's going on there, according to the New York Post. And so look for that. He's positioned himself off in Shanghai, China. He's not in the United States. His wife, however, whom he funds quite helpfully, is co-founder of Code Pink, which is the whatever the deal of the day is. And so he and his wife are far left commies, very wealthy. So they hand out money. It's walking around money. They get buses to bus people into, let's say, Massachusetts, as happened over the weekend. They give money to the anonymous GoFundMe accounts. These organizations pick the targets that they want these people to go to. The message goes out and people go. Now, I just want you to remember, like Antifa, these leftist groups are organized. They hold meetings. They provide training. They have pedagogical instruction, teaching materials. They have iconography, symbology, as I said, training. They have a canon. And they have a body count. That's what they've got going for themselves. These are organized factions who have arrayed themselves to be against the United States. Call it what it is. It is an insurgency. And the first person I heard say it this time around was Laura Ingraham. And I have a feeling that this guy might have had something to do with that. Michael Waller. J. Michael Waller. He is the author of the book I showed you earlier, Big Intel, How the CIA and FBI Went from Cold War Heroes to Deep State Villains. Welcome back to the Adult in the Room podcast. How are you?
Good to be back, Victoria.
Well, okay. State of play. A lot of chaos out there.
Lots.
Intentional?
Oh yeah, it's all intentional. These things don't just happen organically. They happen by people who have been imbued with this all of their adult lives, even longer. It's planned. It's planned by people whose names we don't really know because they're not commonplace. It's planned by people whose faces we don't see because they're not the ones to get their heads beat in or shot or anything else. They send other people to, or they incite other people to do that. Mm-hmm. But it's all planned, and it's happened for more than 100 years.
And you know something about that because
I was duped into doing it myself back when I was a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And I got the training, And then when I realized, and it's fun. You got to being part of that is a lot of fun. It's exciting, especially when you're a kid or you're upset about something or you're frustrated or you're a do-gooder and you feel like you want to make a difference at a personal sacrifice. It's
Yeah.
really, really fun. And there's a whole community around you, and it's almost like being in a military unit or a fraternity where everybody looks out after one another.
It sounds like it's more than a military unit. It sounds like it's a mission from God. It's a religious experience for these people looking to do something bigger than themselves.
Yeah, it's transformative. And so if they want to make change and they think they're on the front lines making that change, and they'll make whatever sacrifice is necessary for it. They don't do it for pay.
Right. Yeah. Now, Andy Knows recently just restated something that we've sort of talked about as well, and that is that, not everybody's getting paid. There are a lot of true believers out there. And I don't even know, for example, Mr. Alex Preddy, who got shot to death and was apparently a real regular agitator. So I don't know if he got paid, but he was part of a system. He was part of that signal group and that sort of thing. So what were your thoughts about that, and what has been undertaken in Minneapolis to achieve this obvious revolutionary attempt? And what does that look like if they succeed?
Well, there's a lot of ifs and a lot of theys there. So let's take it down piece by piece. But
Sure.
when you have a rebellious movement or a protest movement and you're protesting against authority, in this case, they're protesting against the central government or the federal government, but they have political cover. They have the mayor of Minneapolis providing them political cover. They have the governor of Minnesota providing them with political cover. Even though they do extreme activities that break the law and that break federal law, and they're designed to defy federal law enforcement, which is out there to simply enforce laws that have been on the books for decades. So you then have this political cover that gives you a lot of freedom on the ground to get away with things you normally wouldn't, because you're only breaking state laws and city laws when you're doing this. You're not necessarily breaking federal laws until you're interfering with a federal officer. So what moves from protest to insurgency, there is a tipping point, because when you're protesting, you're simply protesting and an appeal to civil authority, an appeal to the media, an appeal to public opinion, because you're still part of the system. You break that when you transfer your loyalty from the constitutional system to overthrow that, even in your own individual way, by setting up your own checkpoints, your own police units, your own barricades, your own liberated zones that are free from constitutional rule. You have since broken with society, and you've moved from protest to insurgent.
That I'm showing on the screen, something you put up, and it was about, going that next step, what it looks like. 5 general roles within each group: leaders, cadres, or professional revolutionaries, combatants, and frontline activists, auxiliaries, and the mass base. And leaders inspire, make decisions, etc. And as you alluded to, there are people who hold the power in a particular city or county or what have you, and they're urging this to go on.
That's the whole purpose.
And keep going. I want you to talk about that. I've got some sound bites of people urging the crowd, because I think this is it's very dangerous. I think when you have Jacob Fry and the governor, and you've got that dope Jerry Nadler out there encouraging people to, for example, shoot ICE officers, it's just absurd.
Yeah. Is Jerry Nadler really a dope, or is he part of the hardcore cadre?
I
his
don't.
background.
You tell
Look at
me,
his
man. You're the
background
expert.
in the when you're receiving Communist Party support to run for office in the most highly concentrated Communist Party district in the entire country, and you come up through legal mechanisms as an attorney whose whole job is to tear down the system, and then you go through your career to become House Judiciary Committee chairman.
Are you
And one
saying
of
he
the
was
most
was he the
infamous acts you do is you try to persuade President Obama to free, or President Clinton to free the terrorist who bombed the United States Capitol in 1983.
Yeah.
Susan Rosenberg.
How do
So is he a dope or a dupe, or is he a hardcore cadre member who knows precisely what he's doing.
Wow. Yeah, that's
How
actually,
many others are there?
that is frightening. That is really frightening. Here's a guy who I've got these sound bites, but I'm just going to see if I can just grab these real fast. We've got Jerry Nadler talking about on Capitol Hill today, I guess it was, and it was the fact that, basically, well, how are you supposed to know who they are? Just like the Arizona AG said 2 weeks ago, just like others are now picking up and saying, well, how are you supposed to know they're police? I don't know. Maybe it's because it says police on their uniforms.
Yeah, right.
Maybe
right.
it's because they have blue and red lights when they come up. Maybe that's, I could be wrong, but I think that's pretty much what happens. And so they pretend with a vestige of a scintilla, of a wisp, of a fig leaf, that this possibly could happen and someone would be totally legitimate in firing at an ICE agent. And it's already happened.
Right, right. So you have these legal networks of lawyers who've been around since the 1920s to keep these extremists on the streets. It was a young Justice Department employee in 1920, 25-year-old employee. He was head of what was called the Radical Division of the Justice Department. And his job after World War I was to round up foreign immigrants who were communists, anarchists, and radical socialists, to round them all up and to send them to Russia, which he did. Put them all on a requisition Navy ship, had a bunch of congressmen with him, went up to New York and sent them to Russia.
What'd they do there? I'll bet. Bernie Sanders was probably there too.
They were a lot of them stayed there for good. They were welcome there, and who knows what happened to a lot of the others, because even a lot of communists didn't survive the Bolshevik infighting. The point is, though, as that Justice Department person, that 25-year-old, was J. Edgar Hoover. Before he went into the Bureau of Investigation, he was out there fighting the commies, rounding them up and deporting the foreigners who came here under false pretenses to start revolutions here. A lot of those Eastern Europeans and Scandinavian Balts settled in the upper Midwest, Wisconsin, Minnesota. And so Gus Hall's family, he was a longtime U.S. Communist Party chief. His parents came over from Finland at the time. So they came here to cause revolution, to destroy our country, and not to immigrate here. So we've been dealing with this insane immigrant problem for more than a century, who came here to subvert us. But as a direct result of Hoover rounding them up in 1920, a group of lawyers got together to stop those deportations. And that brand new group was the American Civil Liberties Union. That's why it was created, to keep the extremists here to fight our system.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah, I remember when the ACLU stood for standing up for civil liberties, but it turns out they were just in favor of tearing down the United States. Here's that Jacob Fry comment that I wanted you to react to and to maybe put it in some context for us if we can. Let's see. Here we go.
Is terrifying. I don't think he's saying that the Civil War is going to happen. I think what he's saying is that a significant and terrifying line is being crossed, and I would agree with that.
Oh,
Governor Walz gave an interview.
Yeah. Okay, lady. Okay. Okay. So, what do you make of that?
You have these lefties harping on starting a civil war.
Yeah.
For years, they've been trying to normalize that idea. Why would they do that?
Why would they do that, Mr. Expert in, I don't think I just gave you your due on your CV or anything. His academic and professional areas of concentration on foreign propaganda, political warfare, psychological warfare, and subversion. So, and he's written a book, his big intel book is must read. And he's been an instructor at the Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey, John F. Kennedy Special Warfare Center and School at Fort Bragg, and it goes on. So you know wherever you speak, you tell me what this means. You're the guy. You're the man.
Well, it means you have elected leaders who have mainstreamed this idea from something that was only the crazy lunatic fringe who both political parties would anathematize to now a force that one of the two major political parties has fully embraced this whole idea. And he's not blaming the right wingers for starting a civil war, is he? In that full context of his remarks, if I recall the whole thing right, he was speaking about the lefties themselves starting a civil war and headed toward a civil war. And when you know it's headed toward a civil war, it's when you have the breakdown of society and constitutional structures and systems, which is what I was describing before, where there's a difference between protesting within the system, appealing to civil authorities, and setting up your own illegal formations and your own illegal zones where the Constitution is banned.
Are we beyond calling this an insurrection?
Well, it is. It's an insurrection under the law. Perhaps I'm not a lawyer, but it's certainly an insurgency where I have a lot of experience and on the
Sure.
ground in various insurgencies and counterinsurgencies. And what you're seeing here is the same thing you've seen in Northern Ireland, in Lebanon, in South America, Central America, in France, even, where you have the breakdown of the system by people who are organizing at the community level. These are community organizers, organizing their own police forces, their own neighborhood watch forces, their own informant systems,
Yeah.
their own even methods of commerce, and their own rules. And it's to keep the constitutional law out. They have built parallel structures that are designed to secede from the rest of society. We saw this in Portland and Seattle and the
Yes.
Pacific Northwest overall in a small scale. We're seeing it in Minnesota. It's only on a small scale. They want us to think it's on a big scale. They want us to
Right.
think it's happening all over the country. It's really minuscule, but they want to create the illusion of widespread popular support.
Sure. Here's a gentleman from Eugene, Oregon. He's saying exactly, he's ratifying everything you just said.
Resistance must cause damage to the other side, and it must make
calling for
every
violence.
act of evil costly. If your resistance is not doing that, it is not resistance, it is performance. What we need to be doing is consolidating our money, consolidating our resources into a parallel system, building out a parallel system to support the citizens here in Eugene when ultimately our government will and has failed us. That is effective. That is real resistance. That makes every act of evil costly, because what that means is if they do something, they know there are consequences to what they do. So, if you want to actually be effective, if we want to actually stop ICE here in Eugene, it's time to bring consequences to the table. We'll be at the same place as always on Sundays, 12 p.m., 454 Willamette Street for our pro-human community meeting. Come on out and learn real resistance training.
Okay. What was he calling for there?
There you have it. He was calling for violence and possibly murder to make every action of the government enforcing law to be costly. He views law enforcement as evil. He views our immigration laws as evil, and those evils must be made enforcing the law too costly to do. And that cost means human cost.
In Portland, there were 2020 through 2023, really, those were very bad years in Portland. No policing, very little, or they were called racists, and they were urging the police to kneel and all of that stuff and defunding it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, laying off, standing down, and that sort of thing. And up sprung the different, barricades, the checkpoints, an armed checkpoint in the, city of Portland. This happened in 2021. And here I did a story on it, and I interviewed the guy that they grabbed out of his vehicle and held at gunpoint with long guns. In Portland, you can open carry a long gun, but it can't be loaded. So we don't know if they were loaded or not, because the cops never came until it was too late. And that's the way it is in Portland. Then there was another incident when there was a shootout on the streets of Portland. They did it it was a precursor to a big confab that the Proud Boys were planning to do in front of at a park on the waterfront, for which they had a permit, as I understand, because the conservative people, I'll lump them in there with that group. They get permits and such. Nobody else does. And so what happened was they were chased out. There was a literal shootout on the streets. I know I got the file today, and I got the shooting. But for whatever reason, I'm not entirely sure what the hell's going on with my computer today. But nevertheless, I do have that lead up in, let's see, was that? That was August of 2021. And in maybe it's 2020, because in 2021, right before it was just escalating, is what I'm trying to say. She tried to say, and things were escalating. The danger was escalating, and then ultimately, what you had happen was the 2020. Oh, this is 2020, so it was year 2020. The escalation and the murder of Aaron J. Danielson. I'll play this for you. This is someone else off the Twitters, and this bad guy. Oh, sorry. I must have gotten the unedited one here. We have here, let's just sit this here. Here's the shooter. And Aaron Danielson is walking at some point. This guy's an obvious lefty. He's got the F12 shirt on. And Aaron Danielson comes up. This guy's wondering what this dude's doing. That was Michael Rhinell. And then when Aaron Danielson comes along, he is shot at point blank range from behind. He was assassinated. And of course, the Trump administration in power at that time sent the feds to find him. But of course, this all could have been avoided had the police been policing. And indeed, the Proud Boys, whatever you may think of them, were PNG'd from Portland and the county, but not Antifa, the people who were actually doing the violence and everything. So they obviously chose a side, Michael.
Yeah. And these things are sort of not known, but they're anticipated in advance, where you radicals will create situations where they know someone's going to get hurt and someone's going to get killed. But that's okay, because there is propaganda value in every maiming and every killing. It outrages people. It gets politicians upset. It gets, people paying attention to news reports. It gets, all of those things that get people talking and angry and fighting each other. That's the purpose of setting up these flashpoint zones.
Yeah, talk about those.
Yeah, so a flashpoint is a situation in which, like a tinderbox, something's going to happen. It's things are so tense that just one spark is needed to just burn everything up. And these flashpoints are created deliberately, partly for the purpose of getting someone hurt and killed. It's always a dupe. It's always a well-meaning do-gooder. It's not one of the hardcore cadres who's pulling the strings. It's somebody out there, whether it's a mom, doesn't matter if the mom's a trained radical or a committed radical, a nurse.
Renee Good.
It doesn't matter if the person has quit, lives with his mommy and daddy, and then goes out and does this, and the parents say don't do anything stupid, knowing that he's going to do something stupid, which he did. But so that quote victim, legitimate or not legitimate victim, they're portrayed as complete innocents who are now being, quote, murdered by their own government.
Right.
So these flashpoints are designed to create situations. It's like throwing gasoline on the floor and waiting for somebody to throw a cigarette butt in there randomly, just for the point of having something blow up, for the propaganda value of it. There was a new left revolutionary in Brazil in the late 60s named Carlos Marighella. He was a professor. He wrote the mini manual of the urban guerrilla. And in there he writes about armed propaganda. And part of armed propaganda is creating situations where people get hurt or killed merely for the really entertainment value or the outrage value, nothing more. And that's what human lives mean to these guys. So they're doing it on purpose.
You are a person who has very intimate knowledge with Latin America and who came in to sort of a tertiary government, Spooksville, in the 80s. That would be. I want you to talk about that if you could. I know you talk about it in your book. It's fascinating, but which is big intel, and how you got your message on what to do. It's just amazing, or at least your name, your crypto name.
I didn't know it was my name for a long time.
Great. What a great story that is. But so, you have a lot of, what you're looking at. When you went, you went to, you saw this at January 6th. You went to watch Trump's speech. You saw it. You saw things playing out in front of you. You said, what did you say about that you knew from your experience in Latin America?
Yeah, I could see it. I could see it happen. And really from infiltrating groups here in the United States. So I got started in all of this as a teenager when I was 15 years old in high school in New England, where they were building a nuclear power plant. And there was a big, it was the Jane Fonda China syndrome thing and all the Vietnam War protesters and the pro-Hanoi, pro-Viet Cong activists, they won and now they're looking for the next cause to agitate, and that's nuclear power, which just happened to be a Soviet active measures campaign to cripple our nuclear weapons modernization and our energy production capacity over time. So this was a global Soviet sponsored campaign, and they get kids like me. I was 15. I love nature. I love being outdoors. And this was the Seabrook nuclear power plant that was being built. And I was told, well, it's going to be 6-foot pipes pouring boiling water into the ocean. Well, that's right, exactly where I go fishing, cod fishing with my dad and my grandpa. And thought, well, that's a terrible thing. They should, they shouldn't be doing that. This is awful. And then all the radiation that's going to happen, and we're all going to get sick and die. And so all this hype on American nuclear power being so dangerous. So I got riled up as a kid, and it was a social studies teacher who I really liked. It was a funny guy, and liked to help develop kids who had leadership potential, and he got me involved in this movement. But he was a diehard radical. I wasn't even liberal then. I was just.
You just want to go fishing.
Just want to go fishing. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, they like me. I'll do what they say. I was used the same way. I didn't go out and protest necessarily, but I would, speak to adults, and I aspired to, hire, school office, and did my thing at a Ralph Nader group when I was in college and all that stuff. Not that I there were many things to admire about Ralph Nader, but not
that PERG.
Yeah, I was part of PERG.
Yeah, but he was a nice guy, wasn't he?
Oh yeah, he was great.
Yeah. So and that's a lot of these radicals are really nice guys. So when you demonize them for what they're doing, it's hard for a lot of people to accept because they're friendly. Ralph Nader actually crashed one of our counter protests against him, and he came over and chatted with us, and he was so nice. We just got, we shouldn't be protesting this guy. He's a pretty nice person.
Yeah.
He kind of diffused it. But in doing this as a teenager, I got trained in vandalism, to go up through the salt marsh in a canoe with bolt cutters, cut through the fence, get cans of spray paint on the concrete containment dome that was under construction, and then I'd be the one to get busted because I was just a stupid teenager who didn't know what he was doing. Yeah. But it was fun, and then what to do when the National Guard comes in and stomps you and that kind of thing. But it was fun, it was exciting, and then when I went, they gave me some more advanced, took me to more advanced training and put me through what I later learned was a struggle session.
Wow.
And they said, why are you in this movement? And I said, well, because of the fish and because of the radiation of the land and all that. Look, this is not why we're here. We're here to overthrow American capitalism. And then I realized these guys are communists. I'm not going to have anything to do with this. So I vowed I'd spend the rest of my life fighting them. So boom, go to college, George Washington University, downtown Washington, D.C. Freshman year, President Reagan's first inaugural parade breaks up right in front of my dorm. 3 blocks from the White House. And so I got involved in working for my U.S. Senator at the time as an intern. So I was supporting Reagan, and then we began infiltrating groups on our own infiltrating the left-wing groups on campuses. But then being in DC, we could do it at the national level. And we networked then by phone and by fax and even by letter with other college kids doing different things through their student newspapers, conservative newspapers at the time, to network with each other and then infiltrate these groups and then publish stuff on them. So it was sort of the pre-digital age work that you see Data Republican and Cam Higby and some of the other people doing right now.
Yeah, it's telling. It's finally the right is doing something that gets immediately to the masses and is generally unfiltered. I would say I would never say it's unfiltered per se, but I would say it's a pretty good message. I mean, it's pretty interesting, right?
Well, if it's all raw, it gets boring. You have to edit it in some kind of way.
Oh yeah,
In a way that has integrity to it, and that's what you see these and other people really doing. Then you have ex-military guys chiming in saying, "Wait, this looks exactly like the insurgency organizations that we were finding that the Iranians were organizing in Iraq." And sure enough, then you say, well, wait a minute, when I was in Central America, we saw the exact same here. And then a British guy who had been in the British forces in Northern Ireland said, well, we saw that same thing with the IRA in Northern Ireland in the 70s. And then, boom, you see this happen all around the world. And it's been happening for 100 years or more.
So, let me see. I want you to comment on this. This happened over the weekend in Massachusetts where someone took a video of the bus dropping off the cannon fodder.
Coming to pick everybody up that they dropped off here to make it look like there's tons of people
picking
here.
them up.
When in actuality, they're busting them in from other cities. See? Look, watch this. See? All these people are not from Massachusetts. See?
So, hold. You know her? She's one of the people from the No Kings rally.
Which one?
The one with the yellow hat, the lady with the...
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, they're all the same, okay, that's what we need.
Yeah.
They're all the same people.
Yeah.
I mean, as usual.
They're bussed in, and some of them do it just because they, look at how some of them are in their 70s. So what were they doing when they were in college? They were probably protesting to support the communist enemy in Vietnam.
Yeah.
They
were
get
Jane
looped in
Fonda's.
against the draft because the draft system was unfair. And the war aims were very unclear, and there was a lot of deception, especially under President Johnson, and then Nixon inherits it, and then the protests are coming in. But who was helping coordinate those protests around 1968 or 69 when the Venceremos brigades started going down to Cuba? It was the Cubans with the North Vietnamese. Were you there too?
No, but I just know that Karen Bass, Karen Bass was a part of the Venceneros or whatever that.
Yeah, she's a fully recruited Cuban asset, and then she became a member of Congress and now is mayor of Los Angeles.
And she's terrible. She's an untalented politician who can't actually run a big organization, which is why there are a bunch of people without any houses anymore, and there are a bunch of homeless people on the streets, and a bunch of people ripping off the system.
Yeah.
Great job, Karen.
Yeah. Almost no revolutionary can really manage things because they're not there as managers. They're trained as destroyers.
Here,
but it's beneficial for them to destroy because then they can just kick the blame over to somebody else and saying how they're going to defend the people, and they need to do that with somebody else's money.
Let me put this, because a lot of lefties try to, chime in here. And I'm going to put this comment up here. Dave, Trump literally tried starting a civil war / insurrection and failed, yet you never remember that. Okay, Michael Waller, the man from the Center for Security Policy, person who's looked and has expertise in insurgencies and was there on January 6th, not in the Capitol and doing bad things, but who was there and saw the moving parts that day. Explain how this might differ from that which we see in, Minneapolis.
Well, first, just look at the evidence. You had a whole private network, turns out was working with the FBI, sedition hunters. And they worked with journalists, and they did it. It was all, crowdsourced information. It was a really well done job to track down who did it and who was behind it and who the networks were. And they, so a lot of work went into it, but they never showed anything with any degree of sophistication that we're seeing right now in Minneapolis and elsewhere, with these hundreds or thousands of people at a time on signal calls, coordinating all this. There was no setting up of checkpoints. There was no nothing. This was simply people going from the ellipse where Trump gave a very long speech, where people were leaving even before the end of the speech.
That was a
we
long
didn't
one.
even make it to the White House. I live on Capitol Hill. And so, and I didn't even want to go. I was sort of tired of political stuff. And I'd been to, a couple hundred protests in my life, either as an observer or a participant or as a counter protester or as an infiltrator. And what I found with the Trump people, it wasn't organized at all. It was just people from all around the country. They always confused the Capitol for the White House. They always call it the Capitol the White House for some reason. They're like, oh, there's the White House. And it's like, they're from out of town and they're looking up at all the monuments and everything. And they're not locals at all, but they were even picking up somebody who drop a candy wrapper. They'd pick up the candy wrapper on Constitution Avenue as everyone's walking and chatting in a real friendly way to the Capitol building. But among them were small squads of people, units of 2 or 3 or 6, really slim, mostly athletic, in some kind of olive or black uniform type of gear, with helmets and often with masks. And none of the MAGA people were wearing masks. They didn't wear masks. There's no need to. But they were running ahead and they weren't enjoying themselves or anything. You could see those people had a mission. And I saw them going by and I thought, this is kind of weird. So I stopped and asked the DC police how things are going. They seemed relaxed. They were fine. They were just their normal selves. This is just another event. Went up to the Capitol where I used to work and was surprised that the fencing was down. There were no signs telling people to leave. There were no canine units. There wasn't a cop to be seen. And thought, okay, well, maybe the Capitol Police just opened it up for the public to gather there. But I still thought it was strange because the flags were up so you could tell both the House and Senate were in session. But then when you get up there, there were organized individuals, a bit older than I am, maybe late 60s, early to mid 70s. But they had a bearing about them like you would expect from a sergeant. And a command presence to them. And there was one on a stone wall on the walkway going in on my left, and there was another one 20 or 30 feet over to the right. And they had earpieces on, and they were wearing colored tape on the backs of their helmets or on the collars of their jackets. They had red tape, green tape, blue tape, yellow tape, orange tape. Well, then after things got rough, and it was only when the Capitol Police started firing flashbangs, not at the people who were causing the trouble in the front, we couldn't see any of that, but at the people way in the back and hurting people way in the back, that the crowd started getting angry and upset. And then you saw this command structure all of a sudden rise up to get people to go up the stairs of the Capitol to the Senate and ultimately to attack the Capitol. But you could see the orchestration from the people on the ground. And I wrote about that in the Federalist a week after January 6th. And I think it stood up pretty well to the test of time.
That was a remarkable column, and I will find that and share it again because I think people need to read it. They need to know what happened. And then subsequent to that, we found out there was all sorts of nefarious activity leading up to it. For example, there was no National Guard that was allowed to go there in advance. We had, until it was too late, Capitol Police, the individual who was in charge of the threat matrix, the person who was the expert on the intelligence, she screwed it all up. She didn't do anything. She ends up with a cush job at UC Berkeley as the
this was
police chief.
Yogananda Pittman.
Yeah.
So she was responsible for synthesizing intelligence for the Capitol Police Chief.
Yeah, great job, honey.
Collecting it from the FBI and the Secret Service and the DHS and everybody else. She was headed the people who would synthesize that and pass it on to the chief, saying, "Hey, we've got trouble coming up here. You have to plan accordingly with get everybody on duty, get everybody configured the right way, ask for backup from the DC police, other federal agencies, and so forth." And that was not done. So Capitol Police Chief Sund was blindsided by that. But who was this person, Yogananda Pittman? She was number 2 in the Capitol Police. So when Chief Sund resigned right after, because that's what you do when you fail, when there's a big breach.
Yeah, that used to be a thing.
Yeah, the thing is, yeah, he's a decent guy, so he resigned. Had he stayed on, things might have been different. But she was then put in as acting chief, and like the police union hated her. She had like a 92% disapproval rating among the other cops. But she was friends with Congresswoman Barbara Lee
Oh, Lord.
of
Oh,
Oakland, California. Now, Barbara Lee, you go back ancient history when she was a congressional staffer in the early 1980s while I was doing a lot of my college work. She was a staffer for Congressman Ronald Dellums, who was a,
oh,
complete
yeah.
Fidel Castro supporter. When Reagan went into Grenada, the little Caribbean island, to overthrow to oust that junta backed by the Cubans and the Soviets, and came back with all the documents, a number of the documents had correspondence from Barbara Lee with the Cubans and referencing another staffer about how they love Fidel Castro, and they went and Ron Dellums the congressman doesn't speak favorably of anybody like that except for Fidel Castro. I mean, she herself throughout her whole career, she became a member of Congress when Dellums left. She was a Cuban asset, like what's her name down in Karen Bass in Los Angeles.
Oh, yeah.
Fully recruited Cuban asset. She was the patroness of Yogananda Pittman in the Capitol Police.
Okay. I don't know how that actually shakes out, whether it was done intentionally. She got she got cover from the suits above, and she was wholly involved in turning away. She was paid to look away, to not distill the information and give it to the people who could have made a difference. Everybody knew there was
Pittman's
threats.
ideological. She was an ideological radical, and when you don't even have to be conscious of it, you just have your bias, and you think, well, I'm only going to look at right wingers because they're all subversive insurrectionists, and I'm not going to pay anything to what are the Cuban-backed people doing?
I mean, honestly,
trained by a foreign intelligence service to agitate here. Those are the blinders that automatically go on.
I know you're a Cuba hand as well, and there's some news about Cuba today, and I was just kind of seeing if I could. Sanctioned Russian jet touches down in Cuba, echoing secret flights before Maduro's ouster. And then I saw yesterday that the Ruskies are going to forgive $30 billion in funds that they've given to Cuba. Hey, you don't have to pay us back. Stay with us. Because is it iffy? Is this Trump would like us to believe that the communist regime could be going in flames? Is that possible?
Oh yeah, the Cuban regime is doomed. It's doomed for the Russians to be cutting off whatever repayments that Cuba was supposed to send them. That's big because the Cuban economy is in free fall.
Yeah,
they were heavily dependent on Venezuelan oil, which they're not getting anymore, and so the Mexicans have been supplying Cuba with oil for ages, and then this past week Mexico cut off its oil to Cuba. So the regime is just really, really, really up the creek. They're on 20-hour blackouts in much of the country right
kind of like L.A.
Yeah, kind of like the trainee running LA.
Somebody's saying I one of my guilty pleasures is watching Real Housewives of whatever franchise. I watch them all. Just want to. I can't have any more news in my brain. And a couple of their conversations where they were just like blithely discussing the fact that there were blackouts, and they're like, oh yeah, I guess I'll just have to do my makeup over somewhere else. Totally just unnecessary blackouts. And in Cuba, they would be unnecessary if they had ever built the doggone infrastructure to get them power. They could have power tomorrow. They could have all kinds of facilities and all kinds of things if they'd built them out with, democracy in mind. But oh no, they can't do that. Can you imagine? I mean, it's just absurd.
Well, Cuba's always been suckling off someone's teat, since 1959. They've never tried to make it on their own. They've always been someone else's colony. So now they're really relying on, they were Venezuelan oil, Mexican oil, and then Chinese and Russian loans. And now they can't, there's no way they can repay them. So the regime is doomed, which presents a great opportunity for the United States. Can you imagine, think you're a Cuban official and you think,
pick a side, buddy.
We're goners. What's going to happen? Are we going to where are we going to go? You know,
Get
we're
on
not
one of the
going to
Coke
Spain.
boats and get
We
out.
can't go to Venezuela now. Colombia's government's going to change. We can't. Where are we going to go? So imagine if you're the head of Cuban intelligence and you have these, because we don't appreciate the Cuban intelligence services. They're really world class. They're as good as their cigars.
Wow.
They're really world class, and that's been one of Cuba's top commodities, one of its top value addeds, since the 1960s, because they can excel in human intelligence and co-optation and subversion every bit as good as the East German Stasi did. Sometimes better than the KGB did. They've been great at it, and they are relentless about it. So they have networks here. Look at the academic departments in the country. Any Western Hemisphere studies or Latin American studies, you can't find one that's anti-communist anymore. Anti-Marxist. But these are the people who go into the CIA and go into the State Department as the area experts. You even have them in the U.S. Southern Command as the academic experts at the U.S. Southern Command, the Armed Military Command down in Florida. They've infiltrated our whole system. So when you have members of Congress, like we talked about too, Barbara Lee and Karen Bass, but there are others who are fully recruited assets of the Cuban intelligence service, and then radicals on so many campuses and cities around the country, you think, what value would it be of the United States to tell the Cuban intelligence leaders, like Trump says, look, I'll make a deal with you. We won't put you on trial. We won't hunt you down. We won't take your stolen fortunes. We won't harass your families. We'll even let them live in the United States if you work for us and hand us over all your files and records and archives so we can hunt down all the agents you've planted in our society and all the terrorists you've supported against us over the past 60 years.
Oh, they better come with documents. They better come, and they better do it from an apartment, a one-room apartment with electricity sometimes in another country, because I don't want them in this country at all.
No, I mean, we'd fly our own guys down there and just quarantine everything. But this is just a deal. It's just who knows what it is. But you can't place a value on that for the United States to take a hostile foreign intelligence service in control and put it under our own control and make them work for us. So you have not just the old archives, not just a few files, but all the operational agent files, their names, the terms of their recruitment, the stages of their recruitment, the orders they were given, what they've done, what crimes they've committed, whether is it espionage, is it subversion, is it spying, is it, who knows what, is it terrorism, is it narco-terrorism? Then you just wrap up all these networks, and you wrap up all the politicians in the United States and all the academics and all the journalists and so many other people who are consciously working as recruited assets and agents for the communist secret police. Anyway, that's what I'd like to see Donald Trump do in Cuba, as well as overthrow the regime.
I mean, you've got the ear of some of these people. I imagine that what you say and suggest probably has a lot of authority, considering that you're with the Center for Security Policy. You've written about this. You lecture about this. You are, got lots of fancy letters after your name, and that means something. So do you think that the people who, well, let's do it this way. We're going to start by asking you about the Jeffrey Epstein stuff, because you were coming in just a few years after he started financing. At least, I really like what Mike Benz does. I know you keep track of that guy too, and I believe that I'm persuaded to believe that Jeffrey Epstein, he, for all his terrible things, was actually not a bagman, and a financier for gun running and weapons dealers, right? Is this true?
It's fair to assume, because that's how the world works.
Yeah. Okay. So he does all of that, and a lot of times those things are financed. They finance a lot of nefarious things with that, such as drugs, right? Mm-hmm. And as a result of the drugs, you have to understand, I suppose you would be able to tell us, if there were a lot of unhappy people currently in Latin America and Mexico who are hugely pissed off at Donald Trump for depriving them of their ability to churn and burn drugs to get whatever it is they want, weapons, etc. How's this? How is really what Trump is doing playing with some of the bad actors in that part of the world?
Well, it's only begun.
Have I just totally hijacked this conversation into another
No, that's okay. We're
area?
just kind of going wherever the path leads us.
I mean, but I'm interested because I do have a Jeffrey Epstein question for you. So anyway, keep going.
But it all blends together, right?
Yeah.
Insurgency and law breaking, going after federal law enforcement who are hunting down what? Illegal aliens who've been here to live illegally among us, whether they're otherwise honest people or whether they're criminal elements. I mean, look at, I mean, these rioters and insurgents in Minnesota are trying to protect child molesters from being deported.
Yeah.
So when you have that, then all these other things you're bringing up comes in naturally, whether it's Cuban intelligence, whether it's narco-terrorism, whether it's elites here who, snort their way through life because of their raw materials that come in from Colombia or China or wherever else. So what Trump did in his Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine that he put in his national security strategy was, the Monroe Doctrine was to keep the European empires out. Trump expanded it to keeping the Chinese Communist Empire out, to keeping Marxist ideology and globalism out, to keep jihadism out. And that's what he's doing to push back against that. So he took this longstanding indictment of Maduro. Because we didn't have diplomatic relations with Maduro's government, we didn't recognize it. Like 70 countries of the world didn't recognize it. He's an indicted cartel leader. So we treat him like a cartel leader and his death squad wife, who's the one ordering the hits. And you snatch them out of the blue. Think of how that changed the whole calculus of everybody in the world, because probably apart from Putin and Xi Jinping, no other foreign leader is safe anymore from our special operations people.
Yeah.
That miraculous operation that was flawlessly run. But what did he do? Trump didn't topple the regime. He couldn't, because that would involve an invasion force, or it would involve a Venezuelan exile force that doesn't exist. Trump made that cartel work for us, for lack of any other better alternative, and with no human casualties. So
Yeah.
what does that mean? No
Except
more
the
drug running.
Cubans. Except the Cubans.
Well, one thing at a time. Okay, let's. Rubio's doing a lot. He's head of a lot of things right now. But one thing at a time. But what did he do? He shut down the Venezuelan cocaine trafficking operations. He shut down a lot of their illegal money moving operations. And he shut down their oil export business that was going to assist the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, bartering the stuff, taking that sanctioned oil that could not be sold for petrodollars on the international market. It was sold at a heavy discount, $15 to $30 a barrel.
Wow.
to places like communist China. And what does that mean? China's got all this oil at a heavy, heavy, heavy discount. So they're saving how many tens of billions of dollars a year on that. With the Chinese Communist Party interests, different factions, who owns those new refineries that were built? Some of them specifically to refine Venezuelan heavy crude, like in our Gulf states.
Yeah.
What do? They're leveraged out on these new refineries. They can't get this oil that they were anticipating. They can't get it at the big price differential. They can't arbitrage that differential. So now you have Chinese Communist Party elites in the middle of Xi Jinping's latest purge of the party and the military. All of a sudden, they're left with debts to pay and no money to pay them. You have entire coastal provinces of China that are depending on the oil industry that's in danger. Now, that only represents about 4 or 5% of China's oil imports, but what's going on in Iran at the same time?
Yeah.
The people there working finally seem on the verge of ousting that regime, but Iranian oil is also sanctioned. It's also going on the cheap to China. China buys 90% of Iran's oil, and they pay in their own yuan currency that nobody else wants, not in petrodollars. So at the same type of discounts they're paying Venezuela. So they're going to be losing 20% of their oil imports just from losing Venezuela and Iran. And then another large chunk of their oil, about 40%, comes from the Arab countries, meaning once Iran goes, and the influence that Trump has on the Arab oil producers, Donald Trump
It's
will be
considerable.
able to influence or control half of communist China's oil imports.
It's crazy. That's
The
amazing.
last discounted supplier of Chinese oil is Russian oil, which is also sanctioned. And what did Trump do just a week or so ago? He imposed tariffs on countries that import sanctioned Russian oil. So he's putting the squeeze
He really
on Xi
is.
Jinping just by going after the Cartel de los Soles in Venezuela.
So there was in the Epstein files, there was a reference to the Sinaloa cartel and some bizarro thing about Trump threatening a 12-year-old that he was going to kill her family or something. Okay, sure, why not? Of course, that's true. Whatever. I have no idea. But what caught my attention, in addition to the fact that Trump is actually, I mean, I could see him threatening somebody. He does that probably on a daily basis. A 12-year-old, and anyway, and there's no evidence whatsoever to suggest that he has anything to do with any of the Epstein parade of horribles. But I was kind of caught. My attention was caught by the Sinaloa cartel thing, and how Jeffrey Epstein allegedly got them financing for their weapons and such. Yes?
I hadn't seen those parts of it, but certainly what Epstein did was, you can see from so much of that material, is he was a fixer for a lot of foreign leaders, whether it was European or Arab or Russian or American or whoever else. He was a fixer for them. And he dealt in a shady area where you look at them, you look at all the VIPs in the world who, after Epstein was busted for all of this and exposed, they still remained his friend and contact. And you see these foreign leaders from around the world asking him for advice, asking him for help, asking him for introductions or to serve as an intermediary. So you have a real sleazy character like Epstein, who lives beyond the reach of most laws, or did for a long time, is a natural person to be dealing with cartels, illegal arms smugglers, and so forth, because that's his world. So
Yeah.
you need this stuff going on, then you do it. So I wouldn't be surprised at all. I haven't gone through those elements of the documents yet, but I wouldn't be surprised at all to see, not that the Sinaloa cartels necessarily needed financing because they have their own money, but they might need proxies to run the purchases, like straw men to run the purchases for them.
I just don't want, we are headed, it looks to be, for a war with the cartels. I mean, they've basically, I worry about that, as I think that is a little too close to have a war right on our border, which we've had for the last 5 years, or 4 years anyway, 4 of the last 5 years.
40 years.
Yeah, I suppose.
Really?
Yeah.
They're poisoning our country, and they've created criminal rackets across our country where our citizens get murdered. The ones who don't get murdered are the ones who overdose or who commit crimes in order to buy their illegal drugs. And that's the cartels that are the suppliers for this. So they've been doing this forever. And we don't even know yet the politicians they've co-opted, the prosecutors they've co-opted, the government agents. We simply don't know.
You mean in this country?
Yeah.
In this, oh yeah.
But you can see what they've done in Mexico. I mean, Mexico was already a super corrupt government anyway. Which was what allowed the cartels to flourish. But also there were a lot of honest, patriotic Mexican political figures, police figures, and others who ended up getting assassinated as soon as they confronted the cartels. And if you saw President Sheinbaum of Mexico, the new president, she's a lefty, but she's deathly afraid of the cartels.
Isn't she like one of them?
I don't think she's one of them herself willfully, but I think she is so intimidated by them that she can't operate freely without them. So remember, she agreed to let Trump work to some degree with Mexico in ways that the Mexicans never permitted before, meaning military to military against those cartels. Mexico, you think MAGA movement is nationalistic? You just go to Mexico and you can see hardcore nationalism there.
The Peter Schweitzer book is a real eye-opener on that. Yeah. Here's the thing I wanted to ask you about that. I do worry about that. My son-in-law is from Mexico, and one of the things that he said pretty early on, he goes, you think that you're free here. I don't think you're as free as you think. And he's a citizen now. He's a U.S. citizen. And then he said, I think your corruption you have some problems here. And, this is my, our new family member. And he's like, and he's absolutely right. He was totally right. Totally right. Yeah.
And when you're from a top to bottom politically corrupt society like Mexico, and you're raised in that society, you recognize it when you see it.
Yeah.
Most Americans don't really recognize it unless it's someone else's corruption or unless it's rubbed in our face, because we still have an idealized view of what our society should be like. And we still have a faith and trust in our institutions. At least the Mexicans have a healthy sense of cynicism about their authorities.
Yeah, well, cynicism's the Ruskies were cynical too, and that's just the. But I mean,
think of it. Why
they're black
what
pills?
Strategists,
you can't have
what
that.
strategists in our crime fighting and national security communities would create strategies on counter narcotics that would not solve the problem over 40 years of fighting?
One that they want to extend, huh? Yeah. Let me ask you about this, because you want to talk about a little bit Iran Contra, because that's where Jeffrey Epstein came in, right? With the whole Iran Contra, that ilk, right at the time, yeah.
Yeah.
And you were in Central America, and you were helping the insurgents, and
I was among them. Yeah.
I was going to say that, but I just didn't want to.
I left Army ROTC to get my basic training as an insurgent with the Contras in Nicaragua.
Well, that's one way to put it. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And
so
you
end up seeing the world upside down about how a small force can accomplish a lot by like you would in certain martial arts, by leveraging velocity and mass to your advantage when you don't have when you're against a bigger target. And we just think that throwing money at a problem is going to solve it, and it seldom has solved our problems. So you take an insurgent's approach to things that gives you insights into how, people who we regard as losers and kooks and fringe elements really believe they can overthrow our system, because they honestly do believe it, and they have reason to.
Well, I mean, when you've consumed a city like Portland and Minneapolis, you're trying hard and probably largely succeeded with Los Angeles, and you've just elected a commie in New York. I think they have every right to believe that they're being successful.
Yeah. They have this historical predestination, this inevitability that their cause will prevail. It's just a question of fighting hard for it.
Mm-hmm. So when you were doing that, did you ever, you were a kid, and Jeffrey Epstein was older, but did you ever hear anything about how they were financing this? Did you ever hear his name? Anything like that?
No, I never heard his name. I heard on the drug trafficking side, I heard only what I read in the media. I didn't see any of it on the ground, but then traffickers are never going to let some guy on the ground see what's going on anyway. I later learned that there were 2 mercenary pilots that the CIA had hired. One of them was Bobby Seale, and they would go down and they'd fly arms in from the United States, but they would fly back with empty planes. And then one of them was approached someplace saying, why don't you fill your empty planes with cocaine and you can make some extra dough? And that's what he ended up doing. I don't know the truth of the extent of anything more than that, but it wasn't like the CIA running operations to finance the Contras with cocaine, because really it was a really cheaply run, very Spartan operation that was always starved of funds.
How did you get paid for that?
I didn't.
You're just one of the true believers.
Yeah, I got walking around money to pay for my airfare or whatever. I wrote something about it in Big Intel.
Yeah, you did.
Someday I'll write the whole story. It's just that the book wasn't supposed to be about me, but the publisher said, no, you got to tell some of your own story. So
that's right.
And the editor knew, because he'd been my roommate back then at the time, so I couldn't pull one over on him and say there's nothing to tell. But really, so it was just like $500 walking around money here and there, and an air ticket. I would have gone had I had the $500, which was a lot of money back in 1984, 1985, and so forth. And but I didn't get a salary for it. It was just something that I wanted to do because I felt it was the right thing to do. Then I worked for a policy group, and I had the special knowledge and the special connections down there. And then part of my job was to go down and report and to come back and to do investigations on arms shipments or on the accuracy of reporting coming out or
Yeah.
whatever else was going on, and then to get to know the political figures in the whole region. So, but that was I was making $12,000 a year doing that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Those were the days. So, yeah. So, how was the reportage coming out of those areas? I know you did some of it, but in terms of MSM people and other media outlets, what was the reporting like? Was it any
Well,
good?
back then we knew the New York Times was a terrible, biased place, but they had a really great reporter there named Shirley Christian, who was a super reporter, very honest reporter. I didn't like a lot of what she reported, but the truth is the truth. So she was really great. There was an AP reporter who was excellent, and another one who was just the worst. You had another reporter, Glenn Garvin, of the Miami Herald and later the Washington Times. You had James Lemoyne. I think he was with the New York Times. He was a very good reporter in terms of professionalism.
Uh-huh.
So you could, you handicap the bias a little bit, and so you can sort of take what they say to the bank. Once you handicap the bias a little bit, you can still
Yeah.
believe what the reporting is.
Yeah.
But like a lot of the wire services and other big media outlets were terrible. When I went down the first time as a college student with another student journalist from University of Miami, and we ran into an NBC team down there, and they got us back on the Good Morning America with Bryant Gumbel, who immediately started attacking us for being, terrible people and all of this other stuff. And then it turned out our interview was never aired because there was a big breaking news thing. But that was at the New York level. So on the ground, you had some good reporters. But once it got through the editors in New York, then that's where a lot of the sabotage came.
So let me ask this. This is put out by one of our viewers. Petrodollar's over because of Trump. U.S. dollar's not considered a stable asset anymore. Is that true, do you think? That has to fold into what you look at on all of these issues.
Yeah, well, petrodollar is not a stable asset anymore because China's moving in to pressure countries to accept Chinese currency as in
Right.
lieu of the dollar. So that's one reason. And the other reason is our deficit spending is insane. And so we just keep printing more money to make the dollar worth less. So if you're paying in yen or euro or something else, but you have to convert it to dollars to buy oil, it's making your oil more expensive for you if it's tied to the dollar. So really, it's a bipartisan uniparty issue that's sabotaging the dollar. And any president who signs any spending bill with a huge deficit like that is responsible, as is every member of Congress who passes it.
Okay, so I've got the Jeffrey Epstein file here. Is there anything you'd like me to look up? Let me see. I've got it right over here. I think that's my share this tab instead. And I shall. I think I've got the right window. No, I don't. Oh no, that's true. Stand by. What do you think we should look up? Do you see this page? I just want to make sure.
Yeah, I see the page. The cool thing about those pages, that's the House of Representatives. Oh, that's the Justice Department
That's
page.
Justice Department.
Okay,
Yeah.
because there's a House committee page that has a really handy website too, and everything's word searchable and name searchable.
Yeah,
And so
awesome.
it's a crazy resource. And even though it's so easy to access, there's so much stuff there.
Oh yeah.
And as you pointed out, you'll see Trump mentioned there hundreds or thousands of times, and then it's some USA Today article. It's nothing.
Yeah, it's like
exciting.
nothing.
One of the takeaways I got from that was how casual everybody was with Epstein, how open they were with Epstein, whether it was a cabinet member or a former cabinet member or the president of Harvard or like the world elites would go to Epstein and tell their dirt to him, or imply it or joke about it, and why were all of them so casual with him? So now put yourself in the eyes of
felt comfortable with him, I guess.
Well, yeah.
He worked. Wasn't he like he was CIA adjacent?
Who knows what he was adjacent? I mean, here he was offering to help Putin to understand Donald Trump before their first joint summit. He's offering to help the Russians against the President of the United States.
Wow.
So
So
that tells something there. Is he doing it just because he's a broker and this is the way
no.
this is his power kick, or was he working for a foreign intelligence service? Was he working for American intelligence? Was he working for the Russians? Was he working for the Israelis, as a lot of people are alleging? For first, any intelligence service is going to want to have access to him and exploit him, and really shame on them for not exploiting him. But shame on
Well,
our services for not telling every single government official and corporate official and celebrity and influencer, giving them what's called a defensive briefing, saying that we have picked up intelligence that your friend is working for a foreign intelligence service. Be very careful of how you handle that person. And then people who have security clearances should have come up on the radar, where the authorities would say, we recommend that this person have his clearance pulled because he's cavorting too much with a compromised asset of foreign intelligence services.
Can I draw you before I get their one search term? Actually, well, let's just do the search term now. What would you prefer to do? What do you want me to look up? I want people to see how easy it is.
Oh yeah, let's look up Nicholas Burns.
Could you spell that for me?
Nicholas.
And last name?
Burns.
Oh, Burns. Burns. I'm
no
sorry.
idea if he's in there.
Oh yeah, he's in there.
Yeah, he was Biden's CIA director.
Okay.
Now, have you heard any news about Biden's CIA director being in the Epstein files? I have no idea what they said. I didn't even know he was there. It was just.
Oh, let's look at the first. We're going to look up the first thing we find. Let's share this tab. Yes, I'm 18 years of age of older. That is so funny. Yes, I'm verified. Oh, let's see. Richard Kahn, that was Epstein's attorney. Goldman Sachs, ISG, geopolitical risks to our 2016 Outlook client call Thursday. And it's a reminder. God, there was like 3 reminders that Jeffrey Epstein was going to meet with Michael Wolff. Multiple things. Okay, we've got Sharman Musavar Rahmani, Chief Investment Officer. Nicholas Burns, Evan Medeiros, who is the Managing Director and Practice Head of Asia Eurasia Group. Does this mean anything to you? It looks like it's some sort of confab that they're presenting at.
I can't read it on the screen.
Yeah,
but the point is, that shows you how easy it is. Now, Burns might be entirely innocuous. Maybe he did nothing wrong. But the fact that he's in the Epstein file shows the reach that Epstein had, where he was either referring to or corresponding to either very powerful people across the political spectrum and around the world, or with their representatives.
Now, before I let you go, and I just want to get your permission to take you on the crazy train a little bit. And actually, these guys aren't crazy. They're right a lot. Here's Revolver News, explosive update on the anonymous 2019 4chan post claiming that Epstein was switched out. Sorry if this is an insult to your intelligence, but I just have to say it. There was a person who posted a 4chan message in 2019 saying that Jeffrey Epstein had been switched out. And there was such specific information. Here's the post. I don't know if you can see it. I can't. It's pretty small. But what it says is, not saying anything after this. Please do not try to dox me. But last night, after 04:15 count, they took him, Jeffrey Epstein, medical in a wheelchair, front cuffed, but not one triage nurse says they spoke to him. Next thing we know, a van shows up. We do not do releases on the weekends unless a judge orders it. The next thing we know, he's put in a single-man cell and hangs himself. Here's the thing. The trip van did not sign in and did not record the plate number, and the guy in a green dress, military outfit, was in the back of the van, according to the tower guy who let him through the gate. You guys, I'm shaking right now, but I think they switched him out. NBC News reports that on this issue. Now, according to the X-Post, we may know who that anonymous poster was and why his account of things matter so much. He was a Metropolitan Correctional Center prison officer by the name of Roberto Grijalva, and he claims to witness unusual activity, and they out him in the files. Very interesting. We don't know. We don't think he actually works there anymore. Don't you think that's really?
Nothing is too weird anymore. Or normally they say, oh, 4chan. Oh no, this is just another,
Right.
some anonymous source and what, but you can't dismiss anything out of hand anymore. You have to look at everything. So as easy as it is to find information now, it's also really hard to find what the truth is. I mean, there are ways that where foreign intelligence services have exfiltrated their agents from the United States in the past and made it look like a death. I'm not saying anything about this particular article because I haven't read it or evaluated it, but there's a case of John Paisley, who was a third level, very senior CIA official. He was head of their research unit and was he ended up as one of the most dangerous, damaging KGB penetrations of U.S. intelligence in our history. In I think it was the late 70s, he was sailing his boat in the Chesapeake Bay at night and he disappeared. And then a body was found washed up, a severely decomposed body later on, but the body didn't match the height or the weight or anything of this individual Paisley. And it is believed that Paisley was exfiltrated out of the United States by sea on the Chesapeake Bay and later died in Moscow and was buried in a cemetery in Moscow. So this type of thing, exfiltrating important assets, it's as old as espionage itself. So it wouldn't be something that we should dismiss out of hand to when you think of that report that you just showed.
Crazy. Wow. Do you think he killed himself?
I don't know how you kill yourself with a paper blanket.
Is that what he had, a paper blanket? He had a paper blanket?
Yeah, you're in a suicide cell, so they give you a blanket made of paper so you won't hang yourself with it.
Interesting.
Anything can happen. And that's one of the difficulties we're having in trying to understand the world around us and make sense of it. Is it's easy to jump to conclusions and to fill in facts where there are no facts to fill in, but you're trying to make sense of point A and point C, but there is no point B. And you can either, theorize it or you can report it as fact when it's really careful consideration of things versus sloppy, wishful thinking kind of reporting, in air quotes. And that happens a lot for folks on our side. We're so sloppy. Some of our people or people on our side are so sloppy that it actually does damage to trying to understand things because it just discredits everybody. But at the same time, you can't dismiss anything anymore because a lot of the crazy stuff has been proven to be true.
This is another thing. Everybody's so confused. It's sort of like how those people fell for the, what was the guy's, not anonymous. That was something else. But the guy who was supposedly. Why am I blanking on this guy's name? Well, it was a fake person. It was a CIA op.
Yeah.
And so, the whole thing up to the 2016 election, going up to 2020 election, the theft of the election and all that stuff. Why am I just QAnon? Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So all that crazy stuff. You go. It's a crazy time. You feel like
I think of the whole Russian collusion narrative. It made sense in many ways if you're trying to evaluate things. Well, you've got FBI saying it, CIA saying it, a former British Secret Service saying it. There's got to be some truth to it. And then Trump wasn't handling it that well. He was sort of, he doesn't explain things as clearly as we might wish he would sometimes. So I thought it was fake. It just reeked of Russian disinformation because what I knew from the Russians and the Russian intelligence service is they want politicians who are predictable, who are level, who have a track record and maybe even a long-standing relationship. So in the 2016 election, they would want Hillary Clinton, not because I think, I would have been terrified had Hillary Clinton been our president, but really they want someone with a long relationship who they can predict their behavior. They have a personal rapport. They have even, cordial, if not friendly, personal relations. And that would be any former Secretary of State. anybody who'd worked with the Russians in a cooperative kind of a way. Anybody who has an agenda and a whole establishment political machine behind them, they don't want a very unpredictable person like Donald Trump.
All right. Well,
So,
guess what?
so so on that alone, it didn't make sense. But how do you prove that? So it took years and years and years to finally prove to a legal standard, right? Because this was proof at a legal standard, not just a reason standard, that this was a fabrication. It was a fraud. It was a hoax. Just like a lot of people have been saying all along.
Pizzagate, a hoax, except kids were referred to as pizza in the Epstein files. So there's that. So Pizzagate lives. It still lives. Crazy stuff still lives.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, J. Michael Waller. Here's his book, Big Intel. Are you writing another one? Because you were off the grid there for a minute.
Yeah, I'm writing stuff, but I don't have a book yet because they do take a lot of time, and you got to be really careful documenting things, and you don't just get. It's very rare to get a document dump that you can just write a book around. So I like to do my own original research, and so for the moment, no book.
Okay, well, you can do your personal book. The one that tells the rest of the story. That'd be cool. Thank you.
But to me, it's like books. I like to learn things when I'm writing books.
I know.
The whole process of writing is you're learning. And I think, well, my story is just my story. No one's going to care because it's just normal for me.
Yeah, I get it. I understand. It's like you don't want to make yourself the story either because that's just the way you have, obviously, journalistic underpinnings. So that makes it an anathema to most journalists, except in this kind of venue where you're stuck. You're the guy. But I hope you do write that book someday. I'll read it for sure. Write it for me and people like me.
Just for you.
Yes, that's right. Thank you.
Don't hold me to it. Okay. Thanks, Victoria.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate all your time. Yeah, great talking and so generous with his time today. Really appreciate it. So make sure you upload. Don't go away until you upload. And so hang on there. One of the things I wanted to say was that narrative in motion. This is a case out of California in Los Angeles where we have a guy who was picked up by ICE. And this happened last Thursday. And there was reportage from the local KTLA in LA to talk about how this was just terrible because it was a poor man and he was such a credit to his community. And ICE, or maybe it was Border Patrol, came in and took him away. Now, the fact is the guy's a taco dealer and he was on the street and they were looking for him. They had a warrant. And they came at him and he ran away onto the Methodist church grounds where they got him. They ran faster and they got him. He knew that. He was already thrown out of the country in 2016. He was obviously going to be deported. There was a deportation order. And now, of course, they're trying to make him into that wonderful, loving, church-going man. And, it sounds like he does some work at that church, like he volunteers, for example. Might be a nice person to have in your community if he cared enough to become a citizen. That might be helpful. But now he's on his way to deportation. So when you have someone trot out that story for you, now you know the rest of the story. The rest of the story is they didn't do an op at the church. He ran onto church property where he felt he might be safe from the feds, and he wasn't. They did not target the church, according to the people who know, which are from Homeland Security. So you accept it, you may reject it as you wish, but just know, keep watch on this story. It is going to be a narrative that will be pointed to, and there will be hell to pay for people who buy it because if you believe it, you're an idiot. So anyway, okay, well, let's see more. Somebody wants to know if I'm a witch. Perhaps. Here's somebody. Every hoax from the last 10 years definitely has some basis in truth. Intentionally referencing your own actions and then spinning the blame to your enemy is a common deflection tactic. Okay, sure, why not? Let's see. All politicians are scum. Thank you. Thank you very much for that insight. That's excellent. Let's see. A lot of lefties here. I actually am, you know what? I'm very happy to see lefties here. Do you know why? Because at least you trust me enough to give you a hearing for the most part. Look at, you don't believe everything you're seeing in the Epstein files. These are ideas, speculations. Somebody called in a report. These are not things that have been thoroughly investigated, but they are things that have been thoroughly told to the DOJ to release them, so they have to do that. So that's what you're reading. And so that's why one of the reasons why I think President Trump didn't want to release him. So, but now you're seeing everything. Lots of videos that don't exist in the Epstein files. Go to the Epstein files yourself. Look them up yourself. Learn what's there yourself. Only 3.5 million things to go through. You got plenty of time, right? Okay. As I say, Thursday's live stream, we're not doing it because I have some personal business I have to take care of out of state. So I'm going to do that, and then we'll be back Tuesday and Thursday of next week, Lord willing, and we'll do it then. Thank you so much for your patience this afternoon and evening, and you hang in there. Have a great day. Thank you so much for watching and listening to this episode of the Adult in the Room podcast. We do not take you for granted. We appreciate every single person who tunes in every week to listen and watch this program. We're here every Tuesday and Thursday, live streaming on Rumble, and then on every other podcast platform shortly thereafter when we can port it over and get it over there as soon as we can. All the shows can be found at victoriataft.com, where the censorship regime has been banned by me. Follow me on social media at these names: Victoria Taft, the Adult in the Room podcast, and the Victoria Taft Show. Send media inquiries, or any others for that matter, to victoria@victoriataft.com. And here's a big ask. Would you please subscribe, share, like, comment, recommend, and give this program a 5-star rating where you can? We really appreciate it. We do not take that for granted either. Follow my work at, you guessed it, victoriataft.com. PJ Media, I write tons over there. Flamingo Audiobooks, and of course the radio. I don't do this alone. This show is produced and engineered by Overall Media. 1A Cast is responsible for some of the Adult in the Room podcast's imaging. Logo design by Hageman Creative. The Adult in the Room podcast is produced at Flamingo Road Studios. All rights reserved.